I think the biggest change since COVID is the work from home and the work in the office and collaborating to make sure they're talking to each other, that the people at home are getting the same as the people in person, that they're not losing because they're not in the meeting at the facility and they're not getting shortchanged, and they're able to give their input into the meeting as well as the people in the meeting. And I see a lot of people or a lot of companies aren't upgrading as fast as they should.
Welcome to Connected FM, a podcast connecting you to the latest insights, tools, and resources to help you succeed in facility management. This podcast is brought to you by IFMA, the leading professional association for facility managers. If you are ready to grow your network and advance in your career, go to ifma.org to get started. Today we're sitting down with Brian Reilly, who works at Listen Technologies, and Pat Birch from the Farm AV. Together, they discuss the impact of COVID-19 on work dynamics, emphasizing the need to upgrade facilities for seamless collaboration between in-person and remote attendees. They also delve into how facility managers' roles have evolved, workplace trends, and much more. Now, let's get into it.
IFMA's FMJ is written by and for workplace professionals. Articles offer practical takeaways and best practices to help you optimize your facilities. Visit ifma.org/publications to explore the newest issue.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Reilly. I'm joined today by my good friend Pat Birch, who works at the farm.
Hi, I'm Pat Birch with the Farm AV, based out of Roseville, California. The Farm is a manufacturer's rep group for professional audiovisual products.
Hey, Pat, what we're going to talk about today is something that we've been dealing with for many years. We're talking about the hybrid workplace and maybe how technology fits into it, but also the challenges, obstacles, just things in general that facilities managers have to deal with. I just want to kind of set the table. My experience with facilities managers runs the gamut from the beginning, which is planning, design work. Facilities managers get involved at that level, through the actual execution, so the actual construction or reconstruction of rooms and spaces. Facilities managers find themselves involved in many aspects of the construction process. And then once there's a handoff and people start moving in, that's when the real work begins for facilities managers, because everybody else leaves. And the facilities manager is left with the building, with the systems, with processes, and having to maintain a facility that encourages people to come to the office or return to the office, as it would be. Just again, from your perspective, what are you seeing out there from the clients that you're talking to in regard to new things that are happening, products, not specifically products, but let's talk about technology that maybe facilities managers have to deal with that a few years ago they didn't have to?
Well, it's always the facilities manager's fault when it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So I don't envy them in the position they're in most of the time when stuff doesn't work in the conference room, especially after they prepared it just before the CEO gets there, and then nothing works as soon as the meeting starts. So I feel for them. But I think the biggest change since COVID is the work from home and the work in the office and collaborating to make sure they're talking to each other, that the people at home are getting the same as the people in person, that they're not losing because they're not in the meeting at the facility and they're not getting shortchanged, and they're able to give their input into the meeting as well as the people in the meeting. And I see a lot of people or a lot of companies aren't upgrading as fast as they should. A lot of companies haven't upgraded their conference room cameras since before the pandemic, and they're doing their employees a disservice by not having good cameras, not just one. And sometimes the meeting rooms just still have one camera in them, when
Yeah.
there's 10 people in the meeting and they've got a camera focused on the end of the desk with the guy running the meeting or the person running the meeting. So I'm seeing a short change in meeting room facilities being upgraded. They're not being upgraded fast enough.
Well, that's what I'd say. The majority of these questionnaires that are going out to people in the field, a lot of them are coming back with, hey, the technology that I have is inferior or it's not current. Facilities managers are going to be at times tasked with that, especially in these common spaces. What I'm also seeing is there needs to be a little bit more of the home being brought to the office. What does that mean? So couches, outdoor areas, food and drinks, things that are going to entice people to come back in the office. But another thing that people are craving is collaboration. So what facilities managers are also having to deal with that they haven't had to deal with in the past, technologies like digital signage, where things are, when things are, these sort of things, and then managing them. And that could be also an IT function. So facilities managers might have the Rolodex that they're used to calling, right? It's plumbing, electrical, but what about if the digital signage goes out and they don't know what to do? There's new people to learn and new systems to learn. So a lot of challenges. I think, though, that the people who are coming into the facilities management field right now are a little bit more prepared for this because they've seen the technological advances. They're used to dealing with touch-enabled devices or proximity sensors and things that maybe facilities managers from 10 years ago, they didn't have to deal with a lot of these things. So two things there. The newer generation, I think, is more prepared. New generation of facilities managers are more prepared for the technology because they are digital natives, as a term is utilized. And then the facilities managers who are used to operating in sort of a legacy system or in buildings that are not current and need updates, well, they're learning. So, there's change involved, and some of it can be scary. And that's where people like you and I become a more focal point for a facilities manager as well. We'll show them we'll do the how. They just need to know who do I call for this? Who can help me with this? So, and I also think that facilities managers by their nature are get it done people. And so this is a little bit foreign to them. They have to delegate responsibility to others. And so now they need to manage people instead of, hey, I know how to get this fixed. I'll get my engineer on this that's on staff. He'll fix it. They're having to go out to experts that maybe they didn't have. What do you think about, the newer breed of technology and how facilities managers can embrace it and then have it help the tenants in their building?
But they need to be, network experts now. They need to be able to get IT involved to get the network conflict resolved with the microphone that's doesn't have noise canceling on it, and there's an echo, and there's only an echo with one microphone, and that's the one over the snack bar, and that's the one that's making the most noise and disrupting the meeting. So they need to come in. New facilities managers and all facilities managers need to come in with a skill set that involves network, knowing how to configure an AV system in case there's issues with it right before the meeting starts. It may be the greatest new AV system for video conferencing and audio and ceiling microphone arrays, but there might be an issue with it 5 minutes before the meeting starts, and he or that person, I should say, needs to know how to resolve the issues. So they need to come in with a different skill set than, even 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So
yeah, for sure.
It's a great point for facilities managers, not just knowing how to order what's needed for the building, but know how to take care of issues.
Well, I'll tell you, toilet paper and paper towels are never going to go away. That's important. I look at the little things first. This technology is cool, but I'm thankful that there's people that will keep bathrooms clean and all that sort of stuff. Another thing, sorry, so let's talk about that for a second. I'll tell you why I'm going that direction. There's been technology that's been introduced that's just simply people counters. So these are devices that are in entryways, in room doorways, whatever the customer or the facilities manager decides they want to pay attention to. So a lot of times it's been ad hoc. It's been like, oh, somebody complained, or pick up this phone and call. I've seen that in some of these facilities or text this, help, or, your comments, send an email. And this is inside of a bathroom. These people counters now at least will give you metrics. So there's analysis now that facilities managers need to pay attention to, and that can be implemented, where I can count the amount of people that are actually going in and out of a restroom. And then when it gets to a certain number, then I can dispatch my cleaning crew there to replenish it, based on data that is available to me. Companies are installing those products. We didn't have that 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't really being looked at. So the pandemic in many ways advanced this technology and made it better, because now guess what? Not only are facilities managers dealing with the things that we just talked about, but what about health and health and safety? Now, this is another responsibility that facilities managers have. It's never going to end. It's like more responsibilities after another, and it's going to become more important because I just had a client default on a building, and that was a big shock. And I was looking at it and thinking, well, maybe that building is not up to par with some of the other buildings, but the facilities manager, she's doing her best to make sure that the tenants that they have stay there. That's another key thing with facilities management. You're the frontline person. If the clients aren't having a great experience in that building, they're going to look to go somewhere else. And in downtown LA, it's very critical right now, because building owners are willing to walk away from an investment because of this shift in, hey, rent is here, occupancy is here, but guess what? Interest rates just went up and now our note is due. It's almost better to walk away from a building. So it's a crazy time to be in buildings in general, the business of buildings, and facilities managers are more important than ever to maintain the level of quality of those buildings, and then also to entice new tenants. That's just something I was thinking about.
No, you're completely right. And I don't want to get off on a tangent about real estate and the
Well,
commercial real estate bubble that everybody's worried about this year.
yeah.
And I'll go back to your point about people counters. It's like, I hope they're looking at the data and using it to improve the experience in the building, not just looking at data to look at it and say, we have this data. I worked for a company that used those at trade shows to measure whether we should do the trade show again next year based on the activity in the booth. And I said, you're looking at the wrong thing. We should be looking at how much sales we generate from this trade show, and how much activity there was in the booth.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just to go off on a tangent. But
well, it's a good point, because you're talking about, metrics, right? So again, you have to measure and then pay attention, because who knows, it could be, well, this one particular day, half the people showed up that normally show up. And so now, do you need less of a cleaning crew? What do you have them do? Maybe you can schedule things differently as a facilities manager. I think you got to look at it not just one way, but you have to sort of use your sort of curiosity and imagination to figure out, okay, if only 50 people come in, well, I don't have to clean this as often. Oh, wait a minute, 150 people came through. We got to double up. We got to move somebody over to do that.
Yep.
But yeah, just data for data's sake is worthless unless you put it into play. And you talk to your people too. Like you said, the salespeople on your side, facilities managers, they have a team underneath them. You got to talk to them and find out what's happening and take information from the field. And then again, maybe talk to somebody like us if there's, technology involved. Hey, I want to, show information to the tenants and let them know that there's going to be something cool happening or different, or there's going to be a shutdown or something like that. Well, that's digital signage. Who's going to manage the content? How's it going to get done? Again, technology related things. It's as long as they know who, they don't have to know how. So they need to be a little bit more agile and not as caught up in, focusing on, I'm going to figure out a way to get this done. No, talk to somebody who has experience, who's done this before, and even reach out to other facilities managers and ask them, what are they doing in their building? And I know it's a good group. I spend time with the local IFMA group in LA, and they're all willing to share information and do field trips to each other's facilities. It's not really competitive. So it's a good thing that there's collaboration at that level too.
I worked for a company a couple of years ago that did a gigantic install at one of the CSU campuses in Northern California. And one of the requirements of the refresh of all these rooms was they wanted to know how often the rooms are being used, the amount of hours the projector was on, the microphone system was on, the audio was on. And it was a requirement of winning the job. And my company had to do a dance and promise we could provide all that within a few months, and we won the job. But it was the most important thing to the school, is to know how much their rooms were being used.
Yeah, that's a big deal. The other thing, to switch from that sort of usage thing, but also the variety now that's required. There was one day in the old days, if you will, a blueprint for success when it came to offices. Cubicles were like a cutting edge thing, and offices had to be, hey, top people get the top floors, windows facing out. Now there's collaboration spaces. The best spaces are usually saved for common use. So that could be a town hall, an all hands area, whatever you want to call it, multi-purpose room. I see that as being both a benefit and a draw. A benefit for the existing clients, but a draw for those that don't. We just did a multi-purpose room for a building in downtown LA. It was really great. It's run by the building management team. They use it for themselves, but we brought in tenants and we showed them how to use the space and just get them thinking about it, because that's an amenity that people expect. They may not have it in their space, but if they want to do an all hands meeting or some special meeting, or even bring a client in, they need to have a space where there's some technology where they can do presentations, the audio's good, you can bring in participants from the outside. That's something that top-notch businesses have already had in place, but now it's trickling down to the building owners and their properties. If they don't have it, that's going to be like a check mark that they're not going to get. So when you're doing I want to move in here, why? Excuse me, they have a multi-purpose space. You and I were at a technology office the other day, and that's a whole nother type of facility where it's contained. It's the owner and the users are one and the same. So that's a little bit of a different perspective, but you want to entice people to come back with this. The number is 50%. That's the return to the office right now, 50%, and that's worldwide. So this is not a U.S. problem or an overseas problem. But what else can facilities managers do to help bring people back to the office and get use of this investment?
They have to make sure their on-site facilities are as good as the facilities people have at home. That if they're using an iPad or a laptop and it looks better than the conference room system and at their office, they're going to stay at home. And if they're not getting anything out of the office other than going to the office and getting points on their review because they showed up to the office, they're going to stay at home. And if they get more done, they're going to stay at home. But the JP Morgan is insisting people come back to the office because of the collaboration aspect of it. And it's a big part of it that to collaborate, you do need to meet in person a lot. So it's important. The owner of our company realized that last month, and he's already scheduled a meeting for us to all get together as a team in August, because he realized a lot of us haven't even met each other yet.
Yeah, there you go.
We're growing and expanding, and they've been hiring a lot of people, but he's right that I haven't met a lot of my teammates that I'm supposed to collaborate with. So it's important. And when you do meet somebody, you get to know them, get to know their personal stuff, and it helps. But for facilities managers, I think they have a lot of challenges when it comes to AV, and that's where me and you come in, that we can help them with those challenges and help them improve their systems at the office. And I think they should get a professional AV integrator involved with their meeting rooms as soon as they can. It doesn't cost anything to bring somebody in and, get the first hour with the lawyer free kind of thing.
Yeah.
Every AV integrator I know would love to go to any office and help them with what they think they can do to help their meeting rooms improve.
Well, that's all well and good, but guess what? So I'm going to reference a U.S. workplace survey. It was 2022, so not that long ago. It was done by Gensler because Gensler's in the business of designing workplaces. The number one thing what had the greatest value for an individual in an office was actually a quiet, tech-free zone. Of all the things that was most effective for those facilities that had it, and then also created the greatest experience. So I thought that's cool. So quiet, tech-free zone. You could potentially do that at your home, but it seems to be very important in the office. The next thing on the list was actually innovation hub. So what does that mean? That could mean, again, a collaboration area where there's multiple flat panels and potentially even electronic whiteboarding. It could be a lot of different things. Innovation hub was number 2, but the lowest one on the scale, and it was still, up there as far as we're talking only maybe 4 points difference, but the project war room. So kind of what we're used to dealing with. Project war rooms are, like you said, great for showing spreadsheets, pictures, files, bringing people from the outside, both people in your group, in your company, and those from the outside. But that was low on the list. And so people are really, I guess they figure they have enough to do things, but they want some quiet area too. They want an area to just get away from all this technology. They want a place to focus and be by themselves and be quiet and just relax for a little bit. Now, outdoor workspace was also important to people, meditation space, all these things. Individual workspace was second to last. So that to me was surprising, but I think maybe that's and I don't know what the demographics were, but for me, I still like an individual workspace. I don't necessarily need a meditation space at work. I prefer to meditate on my own outside of work. And then a quiet tech-free zone. Again, I'll step out of the building. Some of the really interesting and beautiful spaces that I've been in the Los Angeles area, again, we're sort of in a bubble, right? Because we have leading edge buildings and companies. So maybe we see that more than others do in the rest of the country. And we have good weather. So you can go outside and you can actually have work area outside. I've been involved in many projects where there's terraces and mezzanines that are also outfitted with technology, but lesser, not cameras, but hey, I want to show something on the screen. I want to just sit outside, or I want to watch something while I'm having lunch or just hanging out, or I want a better place to meet with people. I need some air. Out here in Los Angeles, there's tons of facilities that have that. And that's, again, where facilities managers come into play there. They should be in the forefront on the design to make sure that those amenities match what the clients are going to, what from a facilities manager's perspective, what do the clients want, and what's going to be an easier way for them to manage it, or a more effective way for them to manage those spaces. So now we're talking indoor, outdoor. And I'll leave one other point here. Los Angeles also has a homeless problem, and facilities managers have to deal with that in downtown LA, specifically the cleanup and even just trying to mitigate it and try to have homelessness not be an issue. I've had to put in audio systems where they're trying to create an atmosphere of loud to keep people away. And so now you're dealing with even political and social issues that facilities managers didn't have to deal with, say, 5-10 years ago. So again, there's just such a variety of things to entice people to come back into the office that facilities managers have to deal with. Because if I don't feel safe, again, safety, workplace safety, if I don't feel safe, why should I come to the office? That's one thing that people are just going to say no. And there's going to be no pushback because nobody wants to fight that. So they're trying to figure out ways to, work with local officials to get this stuff taken care of. I read all kinds of stories. San Diego, it's going to litigation. It's going to litigation now, where building owners and homeowners are now going to sue the city for enforcement because there's laws on the books are not being enforced. But that's not a fun subject, is it?
No, homelessness. Back to the office and the commercial real estate bubble are not fun topics. It's not we're not in charge of creating the quiet space at the office. We're in charge of helping facilities managers create a great collaboration space.
Yeah.
Wireless collaboration, great audio for the meeting attendees and the remote meeting attendees. That's where we can help, and that's why I'm trying to say get a pro AV integrator involved in your facility as fast as you can. And if you don't have a good one in your area, there's so many of them nationwide that can help you.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be listening.
And IFMA has a great forum, an online forum, get emails periodically where people just post questions to other facilities managers and ask questions, even like it's electronic lockers. So that's another thing too that people are requesting in spaces is, I just want a place to put my stuff, but it's got to be just like it's not my locker. It's not like high school where it's your own locker. It's a certain amount of lockers and then everybody has access to it. So there's app space. Like we met those people at Google who are using app space. You can use that for electronic lockers as well. So that's another thing that facilities managers are dealing with are these really cool, but new and untested in many ways technologies like these electronic lockers and these application-based facilities tools. I need to get into the building. I want it on my phone. I don't want to carry a key fob anymore. So they're dealing with that. That goes back to the IT side. Again, facilities manager. Who is it? Is it the facilities manager will be like, okay, just give me the problem. I'll deal with it. And then it's a who. All right, now I know I got to get with my IT people, but I got to stay on top of them. We only got a couple more minutes here before we got to wrap up, Pat. Would you, if you were telling somebody to either go into the facilities management profession or not, what advice would you give them?
It's a great career. I became close with a facilities manager at a high-tech company in Orange County, and I saw how hard the guy worked and how much responsibility he had. And I really admired him for what he had to accomplish and how good he was at his job. So I think it could be a very rewarding career for somebody if they wanted to get into facilities management. And buildings aren't going away.
Yeah.
So there's, like the one we were in a couple weeks ago in Playa Vista, that they're not going away, that collaboration is needed. So I think it would be a great career for somebody. Yeah.
Well, buildings are changing. Business is changing. It's a good time. I agree with you. I think that it's a dynamic career and there's a lot to it. There's some blue collar, there's some white collar. It's a dynamic position. And then again, with IFMA, you've got great people to rely upon. The meetings are fun and there's a variety of people. So like you mentioned, people who are at the corporate level, even schools. We're not even talking about schools now. We're just talking about corporate sort of spaces, but that's a whole nother world. But yet there's common threads there. So I would agree with you. If I was counseling somebody on getting into the business, I'd say internships, of course, first step, but join IFMA. I believe they have a student program as well. So you get in for a reduced rate. But I think there's so much more to talk about, but this has been a great conversation, Pat, and appreciate you doing this with me. And I want to thank IFMA for having Pat and I on this program. Looking forward to doing more things with IFMA in the future.
Yes. Any way we can help either one of us, please feel free to reach out. There's a lot of great, AV isn't as complicated as you think it is. And we can help with as much as you need us to.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And as always, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for more incredible content.